In the middle of a wide green meadow, where wildflowers danced and butterflies fluttered, lived a family of bunnies in a cozy burrow beneath an old tree. Among the fluffy little bunnies was one named Willow. She was smaller than the others, with big, curious eyes and a gentle heart. But unlike her brothers and sisters who could leap and bounce across the grass, Willow couldn't hop. Willow had been born with a twisted back leg. While the others sprang over rocks and chased each other through the daisies, Willow could only crawl slowly, dragging her foot behind her. The other bunnies didn't mean to be unkind, but sometimes they ran ahead and forgot to wait for her. "She's too slow," they'd whisper when they thought she couldn't hear. "She'll never keep up." Still, Willow didn't complain. She explored at her own pace, learning the quiet parts of the meadow. She watched how the wind bent the grass, how the birds warned of rain, and how the trees rustled just before a storm. She listened, she noticed, and she dreamed, not of hopping like the others, but of finding her own kind of strength. One afternoon, the sky turned grey, the clouds rolled in thick and low, and the wind grew restless. The other bunnies were playing near the far edge of the meadow, far from the safety of the burrow. Willow sat near the entrance, her ears twitching at the sound of thunder rumbling in the distance. Then came the wind, strong and fast, bending the trees and tossing petals into the air. Rain started falling in big, cold drops. Willow watched in alarm as the storm grew louder and heavier, and the other bunnies, startled, scattered in fear. They tried to hop back to the burrow, but the wind was fierce, and the rain turned the meadow into slippery mud. Suddenly, Willow heard a high-pitched squeal through the wind, then another. The bunnies were trapped in a patch of tangled brambles near the hill, where the heavy rain had caused a small landslide. The entrance was blocked, and the bunnies were too scared to move. Without thinking, Willow crawled from the burrow into the storm. The wind tugged at her ears, and rain soaked her fur, but she pressed on, one slow paw after the other. Her twisted leg dragged behind her, but she didn't stop. She reached the edge of the brambles and peeked in. Her siblings were huddled together, shivering and wet, eyes wide with fear. "Willow!" cried her brother. "We can't get out." Willow didn't answer. She turned and crawled back into the storm, heading toward the farm on the hill. She had seen the farmer's children playing outside that morning and knew they might still be nearby. The journey was long and hard. The mud sucked at her paws, and the wind nearly knocked her over. But Willow kept going, crawling through the wet grass, her breath coming in tiny puffs. Finally, she reached the farmyard. She let out a small cry, a soft squeaky sound that barely rose above the rain, but a little girl heard it. The girl spotted the soaked bunny and scooped her up. Willow nudged her head gently toward the meadow, trying to show her where to go. The girl followed Willow's direction down the hill, and when she reached the brambles, she gasped. "Bunnies!" she shouted. "They're trapped!" With her parents' help, the girl gently freed each frightened bunny and carried them all, Willow included, back to the warm, dry barn. The farmer laid down blankets and carrots, and the bunnies were safe again. Later that evening, the storm passed, and the moon peeked through the clouds. The other bunnies surrounded Willow, their eyes filled with wonder. "You saved us," one whispered. "You didn't have to," said another. "But you did," added a third. "You're the bravest bunny of all." Willow blushed beneath her wet fur, her heart warm. From that day on, no one ever left Willow behind again. They learned that strength isn't always loud or fast. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and filled with love.